broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Dancing with the Stars here on AFTERBUZZ TV. I know it's exciting in the studio, but it's so much quiet in the studio. I know we can spread out. I'm Kristyn, Burtt, and if you notice, it's pretty empty here, but I do have one more person here with me.
I'm here.
Darvina, Plante.
How are you doing? How you doing, guys?
Welcome back. We missed you last week.
Thank you.
Suri is out because she's out working, and Jake is auditioning for Aladdin on Broadway, so he was at the audition.
Good for him. Good luck, Jake.
I know. Good luck. He's perfect for that show, too. And they'll be back next week. And our guest, I'm not going to tell you who it is because I'm thinking they're coming next week, fingers crossed, but they had to drop because of rehearsals. So it's just one of those weeks. But we are here. We're going to talk with you about week 8 and all the dances and that dance-off. And I kind of want to just, can I cross my eyes about the dance-off? I'm not very good at crossing my eyes, but look at that's kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah, me too. There's a lot of information.
Yeah.
Like, it was just a lot going on at
There
once.
was a lot going on, and I have to be super honest, and I just, last night, trying to figure out how the voting went for the dance-off, I didn't understand it while I watched the show until someone explained it to me on Twitter this morning. I'm like, okay, now I get it, but why didn't they just state it very simply on TV that way, which they didn't, so it was very confusing.
Yeah, was it like 30 seconds after the dance, they still had people voting in, and then they came in with the scores. It was very random.
And I wasn't sure. I didn't understand that basically America was like the fourth judge. It was like Len, and that America was the tiebreaker. That's all I had to say. It's like, if there's a tie, the Americans' vote is the tiebreaker. Because then I'm like, that makes sense why the votes went the way they did. So,
got you. I know what you mean.
Gosh, I was so confused. But let's start off with the opening number. Another, of course, number done by Mandy Moore. I just thought this was really clean, really pretty.
Yeah, I loved it. It was just high energy. You know, it's that time in the season where you just want to see the pros really giving it. And they did. It was just lovely, you know.
It was, and what was nice, they used the entire studio for that, and I love it when they use the 4 different corners and everything. And it's also nice, Karina doesn't come back for every single week, so it's always nice to see some of the pros that were voted off earlier, see them back.
Yeah, and Anna as well. It was like, I think everyone was on the floor.
Yeah, I saw Louis in there, so I love it when that happens. Yeah. And I think probably as we get closer to the finale, we'll see pretty much everyone in studio, I hope. But I hate it when I'm like, they're missing, and I want them to even be there to do bumpers, and we're there for them as much as the celebs. So
this is true,
or sometimes more, because they're with us every single season. So let's get into the dances. This was mentor night, was that what they called it? I don't know. You know, like your hero night. But there's been what do you think of all these theme weeks? Because they're all starting to, like, hometown week and most memorable year. I almost want just like a simple Latin night. Yeah,
I feel as though this season, the stories and, like, you know, that whole side of it has been getting in the way of just literally the dancing, you know, like all of these you know, ideas for themes, I think, distract the celebrities from the actual technicalities, which they haven't learnt yet. And then they start, you know, thinking about the creative because they're given that, but I don't think that should be their responsibility. I understand that it's nice to connect with the dance, but I think it's time to just be like, I want to see, how about they do like cha-cha and say, when you do the cha-cha, we want to see these elements. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to, how about, you know, your most memorable year? Because that can be taken and interpreted in any way.
It can go all over the place. And that's exactly it. I know we talked about this with Louis last week, just missing a lot of just the simple, beautiful ballroom that we saw in the early seasons. And we're seeing it on Strictly Come Dancing. Even if you watch a number or two, or whether you watch the entire season, I sit there and see what they're doing across the pond, and I'm like, I'm kind of jealous, actually.
Yep.
Because I feel like we're just getting these layers and layers and layers of stories, and I'm like, wait, who is the person that had this happen, and then wait, and then they were emotional about this, and whose mom passed away, and whose dad passed away. It's a lot of stuff being thrown at us.
It's true.
So we kicked off the night with Witnos. That is their new team name. Witney and Carlos doing the salsa, and his hero was Mark Anthony, the singer, who he felt like connected him back with the Latino community.
Yeah, I liked this salsa, but I know that they were going for the more authentic feel, but it just felt like a little something was missing. Now, I don't know if that's the beginning spot, because we know how that spot is. And if I'd have seen that routine maybe at the end, I would have been like, amazing, perhaps. But still, there was just a little something, although it was very full of energy, there was just something missing. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know exactly what it was. It was still great. He hit everything. I mean, they had a little fumble on one of their lifts. Wasn't sure what the fumble was, though, how it was meant to land, because she went over his head, and then she just kind of maybe had a little funny fall?
It looked like he was supposed to somehow catch her a little bit more and then do this with the skirt. You know how they do that?
Yeah.
Because then he was like, and she's not there. She was forward, and I was like, I think she saved herself. I mean, as a dancer, you kind of know how to save yourself out of those situations. I did think it was a great way to open the show in that big energy, that salsa beat. But there are times that with Carlos, I'm like, what am I missing with him? He's got the personality. I think he's like playing the show well. Like he knows what he needs to do. But maybe I'm missing that like authentic connection, and it's hard to do that across the TV screen all the time. But I just feel like I want something a little bit more genuine from him, instead of just I'm just a showman, that kind of thing.
I'm right there with you. I think maybe that's what it is, It's very interesting, though, because he has everything. When you tick in the boxes, he does have it. And for a guy as well, he's really working it and has improved on pretty much nearly everything that they have brought up. His arms are the main issue, and the posture, that's his main thing. But he's doing great. It's just something, like you said, just wasn't, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's just that simple. And I do think, I have to be honest, I do feel like Carlos will be in that top 4. I feel like he's headed there. Witney as a pro is extremely popular too. She'll help get him there. She knows how to do a finale. We know that. She knows how to do that freestyle. But is it enough to win? And when you look at kind of the top 2, you look at Nick and you look at Bindi, and you're like, you have to do something to get to beat the 2 of them, and I think that's really hard.
I'm ready for, he needs to now take me to another level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, you've done that, now something else, and I don't know what it is, but maybe Witney, will be able to bring it out of him.
And I have to say that they had provided, they did the clip with Val and Carlos doing the salsa hips, which I think Witney had shot, and I was like, you know what, honestly, that was my favorite part of the whole thing, because I love that Val's like, let me show you, I got some moves, I'm going to show you how to do the hips, and then Carlos is like, and he was like, don't show that, but I'm like, that to me is the human moment. That, you aren't all swagger, and you're not all like,
but we want to know you're human.
Yes.
We want to know that you struggle like anybody else. Your struggle might be something different to, a less experienced dancer, or one that is not, as good as you are. However, we just want to see that journey.
And I think what's interesting too is we don't all have the big dramatic stories, and we have them every season. Alec has his big train hero story. Bindi lost her father. Andy lost his mother. And I know that he's overcome things and reconnected to the Latino community and to his faith and everything. But sometimes I think maybe he feels that he needs something big and dramatic, and I'm like, actually, just being yourself is just awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
But the judges really love this. They gave them all 9s for a total of 27, so they should be thrilled with that.
I mean, that's a great score.
It's a great score. All right, we then move on to Alec and Lindsay, to a contemporary piece dedicated to Chris Kyle.
Right.
And that's the American Sniper. If everyone seen the book, seen the movie, read the book, seen the movie, kind of a big year last year for them with the movie with Bradley Cooper.
Yep.
So I think most people are familiar with the story. This to me was interesting because last week I was a little frustrated with the package that they gave Alec. And again, it's like all these moments like sliced together.
Yep.
And I sometimes look at that and I go, you know, and he obviously was frustrated with what he saw. And he said, you know, I'm human, I have a bad day. But you have to remember, this guy, no performance background, not an actor, not hoping to be an actor, gets thrust into the public eye. He is a role model, whether you like it or not. And then all of a sudden you get a package created for you and it looks like that, and you sit there and think, what the heck just happened?
For sure. It must be a lot. But also, you know, to kind of, you know, play devil's advocate here, at the end of the day, you know, they can only work with what has been said. Obviously they can, you know,
manipulate it
and, you know, manipulate however they feel fit or whatnot. But I was a little disappointed. I wasn't here last week, but, you know, with that whole package and whatnot, I was just a bit like, oh, that didn't look too good for you. And it wasn't very, I was just like, oh, that's such a shame. You know, after building him up, it was like, bam.
But that's what we do in the media. We build people up and then we toss them off the mountain and just go, good luck, here, there's no safety net. And I feel like a little bit that's what the producers did to him. And I'm like, you know, it's a little bit different when it's a celebrity that is kind of used to the rise and the fall and the rise and the fall.
I agree with that.
I think he realized very quickly, like, oh my gosh, okay, you know, I need to have human days, but I also need to not behave like that on camera.
Be mindful,
like throw the finger, like whatever. But it's a tough lesson to learn, and I do feel I have sympathy and empathy for something like that.
No, for sure, because you know, he, like you said, has no experience in this field whatsoever.
Yeah,
you know, so he doesn't know any of those like little tricks to the trade, or that, you know, as soon as you've got a microphone on, that's it, you've got a mic on. So you know now.
I know. It's like, you know, and I do love this couple, and I love Lindsay, and I love what she's been doing with Alec each and every week. And, you know, the contemporary, the one thing that I thought about this, there was tons of hard lifts in there.
Thought there was too many lifts.
I wanted a little side-by-side work, which I'm not sure if it was Julianne pointed it out, and I thought that was actually a really good note because he's able to do it.
It's just too far in the competition now, in my opinion, to have that kind of performance. Like, I get that he's great at lifts, but you can't just keep playing it safe. And I think this was a safe week for them, and obviously, you know, they got through to the next week or whatnot, but next week I really want to see that. I really want to see that side by side, and that was probably more difficult for him because that's the emotion, you know, that's where he's on his own. He's not, you know, in a hold, or he has to, you know, use his strength literally, you know. So I just hope that they really try and work on that, because that's going to take him to the next level. You know, because he is so great right now.
He's capable of it, too.
He is really capable. And it's just, I think, a mental thing of just pushing him, you know. And Lindsay's been doing a great job of that, but the lifts didn't cut it for me. I get that lifts are amazing, but this is dancing. This isn't just a lift routine.
And we saw that from them, too, in the jazz number earlier in the season, where they did some beautiful lifts on that number that was on the porch that they did. And yeah, I think we just need to see a little bit more dancing, and I think he can do it. I know 100%. Lindsay can teach it.
Yeah.
So, because we'll get to that in the dance off. Because I got a lot to say about that dance off coming. Wow. I'm like, it's coming. And they're sort of a part of all of that. So, you know, 988 again, score 25. I think that they can good numbers. They can lift off of this for next week.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Then we go to Andy and Allison, Stevie Wonder, Viennese Waltz. I have to say this is one of my favorite Stevie Wonder songs. It probably is my ultimate Stevie Wonder song. So the second I knew that that's what it was, I was like, oh no, there's no hope for me on this one.
It was so emotional, bless him. I absolutely adored Andy on this show. He's the kind of person that seems to have gone in it with no expectation, like no idea of where they were going to be in the competition, and just went for it. Just trusted their partner and went for it. And it was a beautiful, like, to watch them two together.
And, you know, Allison's playing his mother, who passed away, and this was her favorite show. So it's a really nice tribute. So, emotional, and just a lovely way to go out, really, wasn't it? It kind of came full circle. It was. Now, as a viewer, I was like, gosh, you know, I love this. I love the sentiment behind it. And then we get to the judges' table, and they're like, there was just not enough Viennese waltz. There was too much going on. I wanted simpler movement. I wanted to see more technique at this point. And they kind of cut it down. And it is one of those that, we complain sometimes when they don't talk about technique. And if you look at the dance, I guess, as a Viennese waltz, was it successful? Was it successful as a performance? Yes. But was it successful as a Viennese waltz, just based off of technique and content?
I wouldn't say so, no.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right about that. I have become so, endeared to Andy just as a human being that I am like, oh yeah, it was great. But yeah, in terms of the technicalities, it was definitely, I think, weaker than the majority of the people on the show. Now where we're coming to, it wasn't to par, but that emotion, the whole story, it's like, how can you not get behind that? How are you not in awe of that, So
I know. I loved the number. That's the thing. It's so. I sit there and it's one of those that I'm like, oh, this is the one I sit in the fence about, because I do sometimes get on the judging of why aren't they talking about content and why aren't they talking about technique? And they did on this one, but then I was like, but I love the performance so much. Interesting thing on this one, a lot of people were not surprised that Andy went home. And I felt like he had maybe another week in him. And I thought maybe it was Alexa was going to go home. Last week, Louis thought, he's like, this is Alex's week to go home. So nobody really knows what's happening. But an interesting thing happened to me this week when it came to my tweets. And a lot of people were saying, Allison's now 5 months pregnant. She's making me nervous doing these lifts. I can't believe she's dancing that hard out. And I started thinking, are people not voting for her now because of the whole pregnancy thing?
That's a really good point, because, although I spoke to Allison about it and she's so excited, and, as a dancer, for her, it's nothing. It's still, it still does for the general public watching that. It's worrying. You're seeing a pregnant lady being lifted, and it's probably nerve-wracking for some people maybe to watch.
Yeah, and I got a lot of tweets about that, and I thought, it was that's so interesting, because I'm like, look, she knows her body very well. She's a dancer. She's a doctor supervising this. They're not just go out and do whatever the heck you want. You want to bungee jump, go bungee jump. You have to remember, guys, this is a big network. There's insurance to worry about. There's lawyers to worry about. They are also monitoring this situation, and I'm gonna guess, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm gonna guess it was done on a week-to-week basis, just because your body changes week to week when you're pregnant. Everybody's different. Everyone's pregnancy is different.
It's so true.
And so I felt a little bit bad, because I just felt like, shouldn't we be celebrating a woman that's just out there and doing it, pregnant? When I was studying at Boston Ballet as a kid, the prima ballerina at the time, Carla Stalling, she danced up until 2 weeks before she delivered, and she was doing lifts, and of course everything was medically supervised. And so I'm like, why can't women do that? We don't have to sit in bed and be delicate all the time. You may have to if you have a tough pregnancy, but if you have a really healthy pregnancy,
then you can continue. And I think, this is good, because although this was raising the conversation, we're talking about it. And for some people that may have thought that way, now looking at Allison and seeing how sprightly she was, how nothing really other than, her belly changing, so they'll be able to see that you can do that and you can continue, and maybe kind of open people's minds up a little bit more to the fact that, it's good to keep going as long as you can in a pregnancy.
It's going to make your labor and delivery easier if you're the more you exercise, the happier you're going to be in that labor and delivery room. Not that I know from personal experience, but all my friends that have had babies are saying, keep moving.
Keep doing it. That's true.
If you can, keep moving. They're due, I think, March 24th, 25th. So that will take her out of the spring season, obviously. But I thought that this was a lovely dance to go out on.
Beautiful. And she did a great job with him.
She did, in that I didn't think that they were going to get that far.
No, I do.
The switch up for me, when he went to Sharna and then came back with Allison, there was a fire.
Yeah, definitely.
Lit underneath his feet, and he was like, I get this. I know what I need to do.
He did, because I remember I saw him in the McCadden after that, and I was like, Andy, and he just had this massive smile on his face, he knew he'd got it and he understood something, and he was like, thank you so much, I'm so excited. And it was the next day back in to rehearsing for this week, and he was just on it, he just had this energy.
so good. Like, that's exactly what you need.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to, like, shed the wall, like, just let it happen, do it, go for it. And I think that's exactly what he did. His score was 877, a total of 22. Probably not what they had hoped for, but I think
a great contestant.
Great contestant. I think he should be proud of his season. I should also, I hope he is very proud of that dance. I really do. I saw them, they danced very briefly on The View today, and they seemed pretty pleased with everything. So next up, we had Alexa and Mark, David from David and Goliath doing the Argentine tango. Now, this is what I sit there and go, if it was any other pro, I'd be really worried. But then, it's like Mark, and he's like, oh, I got this. We're going to do the screen, and we're going to be like, I'm going to be big, and then, and then I'm going to come in, and we've got soldiers, and we're going to go to battle. I'd be like, I don't know, can I have a twig to fight? Like, I don't have the creative brain that Mark does. So tell us, what you I'm sure you spoke to Mark briefly, at least, about this week.
Yeah, I mean, this routine, I thought it was a really fun routine. She did a great job. She had one like little mistake, I guess, or something that they pulled her up on, and I think that maybe affected their scoring. But in terms of their relationship, like, they're on the roll. I saw Alexa this week, and she's just like, she's so fun. People don't know what she's like, but she's a really cool chick, like a good laugh, loads of energy. And I think she, after last week, started to see that she's got it and started to stop doubting herself and going for it, and that is translating now. I think they're getting it. That partnership is really becoming cohesive now,
starting to gel. I did write this, and I was like, she showed up this week. Yep. And I don't mean it that like she's been not in it. I know she's been in it, but her personality is there. I've interviewed her once, and now we're going back probably 4 years or so, but I loved her when I did interview her, and it was a press junket for like Spy Kids 4, and she was so lovely, and I'm like, where is that girl? Where is that fun girl? And we got to see those tweaks of personality. And even when she was like, oh, Mark, I'm sorry, I like screwed up. You know what? It still was like filled with like, I love this. I wanted to do so well for you, for me, for the dance.
Exactly.
You saw that.
Yeah, she's coming out of her shell. And I think next week, she just keeps going up. And I think actually she's doing it at the right time. It's actually a pretty great time to be kind of having this curve. So I'm looking forward to next week. I think that she could really, I just want 1 week where it's just like, bam, with nothing, where they can't say anything. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and she's going to have to bring her A game, because I believe her duet is with Bindi and Derek. All 4 of them are going to be together for the duets. So,
wow. Yeah, she's gonna.
Honestly, like, I think a lot of people are chasing what Bindi's doing, and you've got the pressure of a younger girl who is succeeding, who's someone that doesn't have this massive dance training, but for whatever reason, her brain and her body are very connected, and they just get it. You're like, those people that just like get dance, you're like, how is that possible? I took years of training and still I'm not that natural. But and a lot's going to be demanded of them, and you want to do well, and I think that she's got the fire. So I think it's going to be a very interesting week for her.
What did you think of this week's routine? Did you like it?
I did like it, and I felt like Alexa was very present, and it was a really interesting song having to do an Argentine tango, and I thought, oh gosh, is this going to work? But the overall spectacle of it, and I don't think anyone, when it comes to big showpieces, no one does it like Mark does, because every detail is thought out, and it always works very well together. It's very cohesive, and it's a time to step up and to peak and to do that, and she's getting it, and I hope the audience is getting it too.
Yeah, I think so. I think she came across a lot more this week. We got more of her and less of the drama.
Yeah, and the only other thing that worries me is we do still have this married couple situation. Do we when you always want your partner to succeed? We're getting down to 6 contestants. Someone has to go home.
What happens when they're up against each other?
The producers are going to put them both in jeopardy at one point, and one of them goes home, and nobody wants to be the first to go home, and nobody wants to be disappointed, and you still want your partner to succeed. It's that weird human element, and you just know that Rob Wade right now is like, yes, they're both in jeopardy, and who's going to go home, and then there'll be tears, and there will be tears because they're genuine. And as a viewer, I'm like, I don't like that manipulation. 988 for a total of 25. But yeah, good job. I mean, she's relaxed. I think she's relaxed into the competition. Sharna and Nick, contemporary, and his hero was his wife, Lauren.
Oh, I love this. But it actually just gives me goosebumps when you were like, and his is his wife. Like, that's pretty.
Because every girl wants her husband to be like, you're my hero.
Right?
And they're pregnant, and, they had a miscarriage and the difficulty with all of that. Sharna is one of the best people to not only deliver a beautiful contemporary number. I always love her contemporary pieces, but she also knows how to draw out that human emotional element out of people. She's one of those pros that it doesn't matter who she's with, she does manage to have a connection with them.
She does. She's just such a great person. I think she's able to kind of relate to anyone. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? She'll just get on a level with whoever it is, which is a great quality in her, which is obviously tremendously helping her with her partners. This number for me was amazing. I loved it. I felt like Nick finally got out of his head, like really 100% out of there, dancing, living, like those runs that he did with Sharna. I was like it was just personal. It was just so there and great, and it was just an amazing routine for me. The energy, the dance quality as well. He didn't miss a beat. Sometimes when you get so emotionally, invested in a routine, you get carried away. And then you've missed your 7/8 back there, and you're just like, and then you're, oh God. But he managed to hold it down while giving that emotional performance, Now,
here's an interesting thing, because we saw Andy, who also had a very emotional performance, also very personal to him, and they critiqued more of the technique. We then get into Sharna and Nick's, and they just basically talked about the emotion and nothing on the technique. Now, he did get 10-10-10. He got a 30 altogether. This is where it gets interesting, because on Twitch said, so no technical comments on that dance?
Okay, well, firstly, it was contemporary, right? So, I mean,
the rules
it's
are the rule,
quite that's, you can interpret it however, in some extent.
Yeah.
So that takes away that, in my opinion, it's very hard to kind of like put Andy and Nick side by side, because also Nick's technique, sorry, I can't speak today, but Nick's technique is great. He is a really good, solid dancer, and if you're going to put him next to Andy side by side, then I mean, it's
Nick has always been on a higher level.
So I mean,
it's
not like they're not going to have as many critiques for him in terms of the dance, I don't think, at this point.
And contemporary too, again, it's that no rules, it's open to interpretation. So, because you could say, well, the toe wasn't pointed, but you can be like, I was looking for a flex foot on that.
But yeah, it's true. But also, the two of them together, when they did everything, it was 100%, mirrored. There was no like, oh, you did that and you did this. Look, unless I need to look at it back, I didn't see. No,
they didn't miss a lift or anything. So it was just interesting when you hear. But also, he's supporting his wife too. Of course. He's being a good husband, as he should. And then we sort of lead into all this, and then we were like, oh, because they showed the package of like, we're having a baby, we don't know the gender. Guess what? You're gonna find out in the celeb aquarium, like up in the skybox, and we got a big present, and boom, it's blue.
There it is.
That was a little contrived, because I was surprised at how lacking emotion the two of them were, and I was like, okay, either they're stunned or they already knew they were having a boy, or they were just like,
the latter.
And I read some articles today, and they were just saying that they had given the production free reign to share it with people. They didn't know when it was coming, so they weren't expecting it right then and there. But I was like, if I had been Lauren, I would have been like, I'm having a boy, oh my gosh, like, and she just was like, okay, cool.
Probably just like so overwhelmed. Maybe
what is going on?
She was sat in the audience. The next minute, it's like, come over here and join in with the scores, and then she's there, and then maybe she didn't know, I don't know.
What do you think, though? We've seen a lot, I feel like recently, like Alfonso shared his baby news, we have Nick sharing his baby news, we had a proposal last season with Noah. Does it feel a little bit like, vote for me, I got a big life event? Does it feel like a manipulation?
I think, I mean, it's beautiful, and I do love seeing these moments. However, they've really become such a focal point to the show, in terms of like every week there is something like that going on. you know, and it has got more and more progressive. And like, I cover Strictly too, and you know, it's not like that. Their training packages are literally of them training, or they might go and do something in regards to the dance, but that's it.
I wonder if there's pressure with some of the contestants that are like, I got a new kitten. Like, what
should I come into production meeting with today?
Yeah, I was like, what? I got a hangnail? Like, I don't know. Like, well, how do you compete?
Is that why Bindi was like, look at the feet, look at the feet.
Oh, that poor girl. That girl is
Bless her.
God bless her, because she's just like, I'm just gonna work through this. It's no big deal.
She's
Let's talk right about them, because they were next, Bindi and Derek. Foxtrot, Grace Kelly. And let's talk about Bindi on this.
Mm-hmm.
What 17-year-old picks Grace Kelly? I'm like,
right?
This girl is so wise and mature beyond her years.
Mm-hmm.
She picks someone that's elegant and sophisticated, and I just always think, like, at that age I would have been like, okay, like, I totally love Mallory on Family Ties, like Justine Bateman or whatever, you know, or someone, you know, her age might be more into like Demi Lovato.
Yeah,
the girl has got class like oozing out of every pore of her body.
Such a class act. And just that routine was effortless. You know, she can do a lot because she can really hit it, but she was able to kind of like sit into it and give you that stylistic quality and own it with a maturity that is, like you said, so beyond her years. I think if it wasn't already in the bag, that was a showstopper of a routine, don't you think?
Completely. I did tweet out last night, I said, here's a great Emmy submission. Because and go back and watch it if you didn't. Look at the opening, look at the stylistic quality of the camera angle. You had elements of Fosse, you had elements of Busby Berkeley, elements of even Michael Bennett, and everything was well thought out. She delivered. People are like, oh, she messed up a little bit on the star thing with the Busby Berkeley era. You know what? I barely noticed it, because it just was one of those pieces, again, really well constructed, really well performed from beginning to end. And
she fronted the team, like she fronted that with all of the troupe behind her. She wasn't even like next to somebody, so she had a little eyes view if things went wrong. She was legitimately ahead of everyone, and then she changed positioning too. And you know, that's difficult with camera angles like that, because if you go wrong, you're messing it up. But she was great, and that's a lot of pressure.
There is a lot of pressure, and you know, we saw a little bit in the package. She's just like, I'm feeling it. She's human. She's 17, but she talks about wanting to be perfect, and I'm like, wow, she's got a lot of, you know, that perfectionism in her. And she's just like, I'm gonna go through it, and then you look at her feet, and you're like, girl, Whoa. You're dancing on all that, like.
Wow.
But what I do love about this partnership, and this has even nothing to do with what's happening on the dance floor, even though I love that, it's magical. I love that Derek looks surprised. He looks like relaxed. He looks like he's having fun. I feel like we see a side to him that's brotherly and sweet, which we've seen in other partnerships, but it's just in a way that there's just like, she's got some magic that I don't think he's ever been connected with before. She's just so different and otherworldly. He said to me,
he was just like, I'm having the best time. And you can tell, like, whenever I see him, he's just like, I think when you've been on the show as long as, you know, Derek, Mark, some of the guys that, you know, the vets that have been on the show, you know, there is a science to it to some degree. It is work, and you know what works, you know what doesn't. But then you just get surprised some days when you walk into a studio and you meet someone like Bindi, and they just turn everything around and just brighten your day and make it more than just dance. And she's teaching Derek things. She's a 17-year-old girl, and she's like giving Derek life lessons, you know, or she's just adorable.
Yeah.
And her mum is the same too. They're all so sweet and so lovely.
I love that. I love that. And I guess there's just an ease there. Like there's an ease to the friendship. There's an ease to the partnership. And Trust. You know, if you go back and you look, and you know, because I think it's sort of in juxtaposition. I felt like his season with Nastya, and not that Nastya was hard, but I just the flying back and forth, the circumstances, the injury, just everything, that it was tough. Or even like Amber, it wasn't as natural a partnership. I always feel like Kelly, he was like super relaxed with. Sean, he was super relaxed with. But this one is just like next level. Yeah. I don't know. It's so interesting. 1099. They're
trying to crack the whip now, because it's like, what else can
They're
we...
like her shoulders. I was like,
Okay.
You know, I mean, other weeks I've been like, you know, she needs to work on her core strength a little bit, but I feel like that is continually building, and I didn't feel like the shoulders was like that big a deal.
I honestly quite felt as though it was like, oh, we've given you too many 10s. Well, that's what Julianne said. She was like, you know, I keep giving you 10s, and then she gave you a 9. So it's like, okay, you found something.
And you know, it was funny. A lot of people on Twitter were like, oh, well, we know that Sharna and Nick are going to be the ones that have immunity this week because they have contemporary. Like, everyone already predicted like all this stuff that was happening because they're just going to like keep Bindi a little bit lower and then make it a tighter race leading into the finale. You know, people that have watched so long, everyone feels like the manipulation in like the hands and the cookie jar and everything. Last dance of the night before the dance off, Tamar and Val. Her hero was Toni Braxton, her sister. They did a paso doble, and this was another one. And I just was like, last week I was like, packages suck, and she was the victim of one of those sucky packages. Excuse my language, guys. And I was glad that Val kind of spoke up about that because...
Yeah, he was upset. You could tell. He was just like, it's not cool. You know, I was glad, putting all of that aside, that... You know, because it seemed like it did get to her the last couple of weeks, and it seemed as though she kind of came back this week to us, you know, and was like, you know, I'm just going to go for this because I think there's a lot that goes on. And, you know, imagine you get perceived in a certain way. It must hurt a little, you know, not a little, a lot, probably, you know.
She's human. Yeah. She has feelings.
And then to get back on the floor. So, and did she not do press last week, or was that the week before?
She did not do press.
Last
I think
week
2 weeks in a row. It's 2 weeks in a row.
This was like, oh. Yeah. So I was glad that this routine I thought was great. I thought she has a great dance quality about her, but she still does have things to work on. So I just hope that she continues to keep going after it. Do you know what I mean?
She needs the fire to go after that.
Less fire and drama and packages and all that business. Now you've got a few weeks left, you know. Just go about the dance. Like, we want to see
lay it all
you
out there
do
on the dance floor. Who cares?
Because I feel like there's still something that she's not giving.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's a little bit more guarded compared to some of the other contestants. Maybe in a way that, like, Carlos, too, has a little bit of his wall up, too.
Yeah, maybe.
But I look at her on the dance floor. I'm like, those legs, like, unbelievable to die for. I love that they were showcased. And I just feel like she's, like, almost there. And it's just, like, they just need that breakthrough of just, like, putting your heart out there and just saying, I got this. And I think she feels like she has her heart out there, but I don't think she realizes there's like maybe just one more level. And I've been there even as a dancer of like, I'm giving my all, I'm being emotional, but then you realize like you have this like breakthrough in the studio in rehearsal or something, you're like, oh,
that's it, that's what they were talking about, or you know, whoever. So
now I see it. So I kind of understand sort of like where she's coming from and something like that. And you know, and it's tough when you feel like the whole world is against you, or you feel like producers are against you.
It is tough. I mean, at the end of the day, I think this season especially has been a bit much with all of that. And I just really hope that she goes after it this week and just, you know, puts all that aside and stops worrying about it, because she's the one person, I would say, that I feel is getting affected mentally out of this, you know, like with all of those comments and stuff like that, you know. I
believe it's Val and Tamar and Sharna and Nick this week. They're headed to Vegas, so I think that's actually going to be where Nick's coming off of a very emotional week. I think maybe the two of them will really, because I'm looking forward to the two of them dancing together. I think it should be really interesting out there. Fun. Yeah, I think that this will be really good for her, because I'm like, she's almost there. And I know Val, you know, Val's competitive. He wants to give her, you know, he wants to push her. He wants to make it to the finale. So he doesn't want to be, no one wants to be in 5th place. No. You're like, I almost
so
made
close.
it.
You've done all that work and then don't get to showcase it. Yeah. It's unfortunate.
And I think she's capable of doing it, because she does have a natural ability that is there. Now she needs to like tap in her natural ability with her emotions and put them together. 9, 9, 10 though, great performance. So I think that should help her. Maybe that'll propel her for next week. Now let's get to the dance off, because this was going on at the same time, and there's a lot watching, and America's vote is like Len's vote, but we didn't really know that because it was explained in all these different ways, and I was so confusing. Yeah,
I think I'm still a little confused, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. So there were the 3 dances: Jive, Cha-Cha, and Samba. Of course, at the top of the leaderboard was Bindi and Derek, so they were able to. I love that they were just like, "Who wants to do Jive against us?" And they're like, "You're supposed to pick a partner," and they picked the style. But he just laid it out there, and you know what? It was smart, actually. And Carlos and Witney were like, "We'll do Jive with you." So here's the thing. I looked at this was the first one where I was like, none of this makes sense. I watched Bindi and I watched Carlos, and I went back and watched them both again, and I really felt that Bindi won that round.
And they didn't win it on the scores.
They won America's vote, but they did not win it in the judges' vote. The judges all voted Carlos, Carlos, Carlos.
I thought that was interesting. I felt like they weren't even watching that, and they already knew what they were going to do, because from watching that, it was weird that it was all of them. Did you think that?
Yeah, that not one person voted for Bindi. Are you kidding me? Like, her kicks and flicks. And the one thing that's been very consistent with Bindi is her feet and her legs have been very precise from the very beginning. So the Jive for her, I think, is one of those natural dances. And if you watch what was going on in her corner, I was like, okay, she should have this like handed to her. And across the board, they were Carlos. And not that Carlos did bad, but Bindi was a level up on that.
Yeah, I felt like it took them a little minute to kind of get into their choreography a little bit more. So that was a bit strange to me. It was all a bit like, oh, we're going, here it is, splitting the dance floor. It was all a bit weird.
It was all, confusing.
I don't think that helped. Like, what does that help any of us to figure out? Like, do you know what I mean? I would just much rather see a group dance personally, or something a little bit more interactive. I know they're trying to get the competition element, but we already have that.
Right, and you're asking America to watch the dance and vote at the same time, and you're like,
we don't have time for that.
And of course, for us on the West Coast, it's a moot point.
Just a mishmash.
It's just a moot point. Yeah, so that's why I was like, okay, so at that point I was like, okay, so Carlos gets that 2 additional points. I got that. Obviously, Nick and Sharna were immune. They got their 3 extra points. So then we get to the next one, and then we get Tamar and Alexa doing Cha-Cha. And again, Tamar, I think, and Val took a little bit longer to get into their Cha-Cha. Alexa's was very traditional. Very
comp style. Which is what they're looking for, right? In that whole situation.
Well, this is where I started to get mad, because I was like, guys, like, you all night long you've had the troupe show off numbers, like the Argentine tango. We saw a beautiful piece with Jenna and Artem, and
that was lovely.
It was lovely, and they showed different numbers, like they had the troupe doing the Jive, and so we got to see what those dancers are supposed to look like. And then you're telling me that something more contemporary is going to beat out traditional.
Something traditional in a traditional setting when you're asking people to dance side by side. That makes 0 sense. I was really surprised at this one, because to me it was quite clear that Alexa was the stronger dancer. Because watching Val and Tamar was almost like waiting to see, like, oh, do we go now? It seemed like there was a little bit of a hesitation in the dancing with her, whereas Alexa was very confident. She was given a lot of sass. She knew what she was doing. She had it down, the skirt and all of that business. I was very surprised.
I was surprised. And then the judges, to make this all even more confusing, 1 for Alexa, 2 for Tamar, and then America voted for Alexa. America is the tiebreaker, which I didn't understand last night when I was watching. So that's why the points went to Alexa and not Tamar. But I just was like, what are the judges looking for? Because we don't know. There's not like a list of like, we're looking for, hip action. We're looking for certain types of footwork. This would have been a great time
to say that.
And just have like 3 little bullet points. Like, we're looking in the Cha-Cha, we're looking for 1, 2, 3. In the Jive, we're looking for, kicks, flicks, that type of thing. And you want to educate the public, this is a great way to do it.
Well, I think that's what's been missing this whole season, actually, because I think that's where Len's been missed.
I miss him.
Because he really does go into that, and he kind of keeps it streamlined. He's the one that will say, you know what, you went a little too far, you know, and then the other judges are able to kind of go on their trains on what they liked about it. But Len was always the one that would be the rock of consistency with technique and just, you know, explaining what the dances were, you know, telling us what movements they'd put in there to educate. But like this season, I've not heard any of that, really.
No.
Like, you know, none of that kind of, this could do with work, or, you know, you're here and there, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's frustrating because you have one judge that's like, sometimes I call out lifts, sometimes I don't. It depends on who it is. And then, you know, Julianne, I think, tries, but then sometimes she gets distracted by the performance. If she's supposed to be the ballroom judge, and Lou's like, she's the ballroom judge this season. And Bruno, I don't know where Bruno's been this season. I feel like he's been off, like, I don't know. Like, usually he's a little bit more outrageous, and maybe because it's Len that's next to him, and you know, you've got
You think he's usually more outrageous?
Yeah, and this season he's been a little bit more muted. I don't know. Or am
maybe
I just
he misses Len.
I think
he misses his friend.
His buddy.
That could be it, because yeah, he still seems pretty lively to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like he's a little bit more muted. But then the entire thing goes to hell in a handbasket when Alec and Andy go, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault. They get Samba. So you have two dancers, two celebs who are not dancers, who haven't done the Samba. They have not done it yet this season. So unfair.
Totally unfair.
And then you have one couple, Allison and Andy, that are just like, we don't know Samba. We're not going to do Samba.
Have a good time.
We're going to freestyle. We're going to worm. We're going to do some gymnastics. We're going to go to Rio in 2016. And then you have Alec and Lindsay, and Lindsay tried to put in, as you know, or have them do as much, but they did some Samba. There was like a Samba roll. Like she tried to, even though it wasn't perfected, they didn't have like a whole week in the studio. She did try and get them to do some Samba steps.
No, she did. I did see a few in there for sure. But it is, how can you expect them to go side by side when they've never even done the dance before? And
they're just like, what the heck were we watching? And then, to me, it was completely unfair that they're like, well, Andy, because you did a handstand and the worm, you get 2 points.
It's just silly.
How is that fair to the couple that just tried to do some Samba when you asked them to do a Samba?
Well, this is the thing now. It's like, do you just do it for a laugh, you know, and just go for it and ham it up and hope and pray that they appreciate your energy? Or do you legitimately try and learn the dance and then hope that they'll appreciate that even if it doesn't come together? And it seems to be like, I wish that we knew what they would like.
What were they judging?
Yeah, what the parameters for this whole
They obviously didn't care about a Samba roll, or a Samba, and they were like, you got some Samba bounce in there, Andy. I'm like, from what? His handstand? His handspring? Whatever. But you know, that strategy with Allison and Andy worked for them. It didn't keep them on the show, but it worked so that they could get 2 more points.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely agree with you on that one. I don't know about that whole, hope that doesn't happen again.
This is how I felt. I was like, this is how I felt. Like, I was so frustrated. Yeah, I just want to be like, this is how I felt about the dance off. Yeah, and you know, Jeff, who is one of our coordinators here at AFTERBUZZ TV, he's a big fan of Dancing with the Stars, and he's like, what was that? I hope they never do that again. And we're talking about someone that he watches with his girlfriend every week, and she's the one that got him into the show. And you know, he's not a trained dancer himself, but he's like,
Nah.
So if you're talking about like a viewer like that's like, I don't even understand what that dance. Yeah, it was this. So that's how I feel. I was so mad. I was so mad.
Yeah, it was a shame. So many things they could have done. You know, got the group together, done, you know, like a nice big group number or something, you know, where we could have seen a bit of, you know, morale, boost the morale of the team, get everyone's energy up. That was just more stress, more aggravation. They all had extra dances to learn when they'd never even seen it in their lives. Just a mess. Just an absolute mess.
And you know, I want to compliment like all the celebs. This is one of the strongest, you know, top 8, top 7 that we have seen in so long, where you could really say, if, you know, the finale was next week, maybe Nick would win, maybe Bindi would win, maybe, you know, someone comes out of left field and like eclipses both of them.
Yeah.
You never know. And when people are like, who do you think's going home? Like, I've been like, Alex, Tamar, you know, Carlos, Alexa. I don't know. I
thought last week it might have been Tamar.
And I think, yeah, like you could have said like that package might have, alone might have, hurt Tamar or anything else like that. But I don't feel like she's going home next week at all.
No.
But then if you ask me who I think's going home, I'm like, oh no.
It's a tough one. I think Alec is at the bottom of the pack as of right now.
For sure, score-wise. How is he doing with America, though? Because he's got an interesting story.
100%, but also with him, he's still new, we were saying, to social media and all of that, so he hasn't really got, although right now we're all very much aware of who he is and what an amazing thing that he did, he doesn't have, all the fans for like 20 years or, shows, like Tamar, her family, people have seen her for so many years in the showbiz. What is with me today? I literally cannot talk.
We're all riled up.
Sorry, guys. We're just so into it. It's just like hard to get the words out.
So riled up. Yeah, it's very interesting, and I don't I wouldn't say like hardcore. Okay, it's Alec's week to go home. I really don't. I enjoy their partnership. I enjoy what Lindsay's been doing. I'm always like, what am I going to see? Even if it's a growth week for them. I always feel like they come back and they're like, we got it.
They always do give a good show. Like when they get on the floor, regardless of the package, this, that, or the other, it always comes together. It really does. So we shall see.
We shall see. And next week will be interesting. A lot of the celebs have flown all over the country for their duets. So we'll see New York and Vegas, and someone's going on a cruise ship. So yeah,
fun.
And we'll be back next week too. Hopefully with our guest that had to cancel this week. Yeah. But you guys will love it if everything works out. So fingers crossed on all of that. And hopefully Surrey and Jake will be back in studio.
Yay.
So much going on. It was a busy week. But Darvina, this was really kind of fun.
It was fun. We got to break it down, like really get into the nitty gritty of what we thought. So I enjoyed it.
I did too. All right, tell everyone where they can find you.
I'm at DivaDarv on Instagram and Twitter.
And I'm Kristyn Burtt at Twitter and the Kristyn Burtt on Facebook and Instagram. We'll see you all next week. Thanks for joining us.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later!
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.